I'd like to welcome everybody. We will consider a motion to adopt the meeting agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. David has passed out minutes from our March 12th meeting. At your convenience, we'll entertain approving those. Motion to approve.
I guess I gotta second it.
You do. All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I appreciate that. We need public input tonight. All right. Committee and authority members and reports.
Passed out the financial reports a moment ago. Don't know if you guys have had a chance yet to look at them. Numbers look pretty good. We are 41.7% of the way through the year. So as a comparison, if you look at the numbers, that's the basis there. Expenses for repair and maintenance, we've seen some things a little higher there. We've had AWAS issues at the airport, and that AWAS system, and talking with our engineering team, is getting a little long in the tooth, nearing the end of its service line. So we're going to get that in our CIP to upgrade that over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever timeline we can get that put in there. And in talking with Phil, he said there might be some funds out there that come available a little more quickly. Wouldn't be the standard funds, might be a 75-25 split. But we're spending enough money right now that if we keep on this pace, the 75-25 split is going to be better than waiting longer for a 90-10 or something, just because of the cost incurred there. Otherwise, I think everything is pretty much in order. We have raised fuel prices, and I think we're seeing a little bit better return on that on the avgas side. The fuel cost is going up. I think Randy's going to dive into it a little bit deeper, but it has not slowed our fuel sales at this point. So, any questions? I'm happy to try and answer those for you.
Any questions for Ed?
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, we bought this. Yeah, right.
Randy, you're up.
On your desk, you have a copy of a draft for a tie-down agreement. It's the first one. Basically, what we're trying to do is get something documented per aircraft that arrive on station for a monthly tie-down. And this is just a draft. If you get a chance to peruse it, if you recommend any changes, I'm open completely. Basically, it's the same thing, $5 a day, $8 for a twin overnight fees, $40 a month for a single engine, and $50 for a twin. And if the hangar's coming up available, we may have a hangar for nightly at $25 a night. So we're looking at that now.
Randy, what have you been using Alpra for? Have you just, have you not?
Nope, just a
For
check.
tie downs, we've had nothing form-wise. We've just told them what it was, and we've got the checks on it, and we need to tighten that up a little bit.
And we've been real good with that, but the problem came about, we needed this because the last couple of months we had one aircraft, you can leave it any time, so like a parking garage, if they get in it in the evening and take off late at night, you don't know if they're parked out of the way, short of walking a ramp every day, looking to tell them. So we're going to do this agreement, and you see there's a caveat. If they fail to tell us that they pay the rest of the month, $5 a day, $8 a day for a twin, and gives us a little more. And it requires them to make sure they have $1 million insurance and $100,000 per passenger seat per aircraft. And that's just pretty much the standard insurance policy for aircraft owner.
That's in line with what we have for those renting hangars from us, so we're staying consistent with that. We just want to make sure we've got every airplane on that airport insured from a liability perspective.
On our budget agreement, you can see on the back page there was 142% for multi-service fee. Multi-service fee is a deduction when we handle military aircraft, and because we've exceeded expectations on refueling military aircraft so far this year, our fees are a little high, so we're going to readjust that. it's on the top line at 142% of multi-serve. They charge basically a small 2.5% fee per transaction for military fueling, but the profit we make off of it more than makes up for it. So we're just gonna reallocate funds from one zero budget item to offset that.
But Randy, if I understand what you said correctly, we're selling more fuel
Yes.
than we expected, therefore we've got more revenue to offset that.
Yes, we're gonna raise that anticipated revenue. And instead of budget $750, we're gonna raise that up to probably 2,000, because the summer's looking good for military aircraft. On the April sales, you can see that we were at the point that fuel was going up faster and we changed the prices, my bad. 30th of April, we changed that. If you look at the May sales, anticipated average per gallon was $4.49. Transit was $4.69, and the purchase was over $4. This increased the revenue, even though we did have multiple rain days in May. As you all know, last month was pretty rainy. So even with that, if you look at the June sales, we're still on par. In fact, we're over our halfway amount based on the fuel that we've sold so far. On the bottom left corner of June, even though it says 531.18, it's actually, as of today, we're 5,444 gallons on hand for 100 low lead, for Jet A, and 100 low lead is 4,105 gallons. Air Methods took quite a fill on Saturday. They flew again Sunday and again this morning. So when their helicopter gets back, they're on track this month, I believe, to hit between 900 and 1,000 gallons. We've already had a military and 2 civilian jet fuel sales. So June is really coming along. If our next load of fuel, probably in July, if it goes down, we'll readjust. But right now, this is making up for the fuel that was in the tank before the purchase and giving us a little bit of a profit margin. The last thing I want to talk about is a Front Porch gang member. As you all know, it's the informal group of pilots that hang around the airfield, Front Porch Gang. We had a girl, Kristen Gibson. Her father works at Joe Aircraft on the aircraft maintenance side of the house. She's been coming out to the airport working part-time with Garrett for about 8 years. She graduated high school on the 30th. 2 years ago, she started on washing and waxing aircraft business, or all her own. In fact, Friday, she was laying on a dolly washing and waxing an airplane. She graduated with honors on 30th of May. She's been taking flying lessons since she was 15. She's got over 13 hours pilot training. She pays for it out of her washing and waxing aircraft. She starts University of North Georgia this October. And as a member of the Front Porch Gang, we had our luncheon, our second Friday of the month. We took up a collection to help her get started in college and raise $1,010 for her in North Georgia, University of North Georgia. College starting in October. So good on her, good on the people at the airfield that come in, even the transit. We see the envelope and the photo and the write-up and then start donating, so good on her. Good to see a kid really applying herself, and we look for her to get her private pilot's license by the end of this year. She's 18 now, so she's on track.
She's talking about becoming a professional airline pilot.
Yes.
That's her goal. So.
She had 2 goals. She wants forensics or aviation, so she's looking at flight nurse, working on flying ambulances. But she got a lot of feedback from Aurora on Friday that she flies the air ambulance. So she's giving us a lot of feedback. And then one of the ladies taking flying lessons with Ted Scott, she's just been picked up to go into the Air National Guard. She's going to do her flight training when she's 16 and said after 6 months she may transition to stealth. So Hannah's really been great with that as well. So a lot of activity. Ted Scott's got about 12 students out there, and the Get Inspired Bushcat is doing well. When the weather permits, they're flying a light sport experimental tail dragger. So come on out and fly. Any questions?
Randy, what date is the open house?
October 6th or 7th. What day is it? Saturday? The Jeep
October
Festival.
6th is the Marble Festival.
Okay, we're going to be October the 6th. That's our open house, October the 6th. In conjunction with the weekend of the Marble Festival. And look for balsa wood aircraft and airplane whistles and food truck and tent for you guys. So flipping burgers. Try that.
That was good,
Yes.
that was good right through whistles.
Not one was left behind either. Not one was
Right.
thrown in the trash. Not one was broken.
Where's the military business coming from?
Usually Fort Jackson or Fort Campbell. Fort Jackson brings people down, and Winder, the guard.
They go to
unit
Florida for
over in
training a
Winder.
lot, don't they?
Yes, we get transition when they're bringing their large helicopters from Fort Campbell or Fort Jackson to transition to New Orleans for depot level maintenance. They'll stop in because of word of mouth, they get the crew car, eat, let us fill them up. So we haven't started hot refueling yet this summer, but there was a major unit that was doing it last time was deployed to Somalia, so they'll be back either end of July or August. It's classified, so they really won't tell me when, so. We still got barbecue, so they'll be back.
Any more questions for Randy?
Just one, what do you account for the up in sales? Are you seeing more pilots out there, more planes out there? Are people hearing more about Pickens and coming there because it's cheaper gas and it's easier to land?
Our fuel is very reasonable in the area. I think right now what's happening is more and more people are getting accustomed to our Pickens County Airport Facebook page. The last post that I put up about a military reached over 6,000 people. And we're getting, everyone that lands, we take a photo, put it up on the Facebook, get a new member, they start telling their friends. So we're getting an increase of transit aircraft, but because we have so many students, they're getting more flying hours in before they get their flight eval. So we're selling more fuel to the flight school. That helps as well. Combination.
A little bit of everything, ain't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Have the tie downs and the number of planes based there increased?
We lost one yesterday, nope, this morning. We lost one this morning, gained one Saturday. So they're staying basically level right now between 65 and 71 airframes. But with the hangars, if the hangars get built, they will come. We anticipate our optimistic projection is over 150 aircraft based on the field. If you have it and don't fly it, you might as well not have it. So if they bring it, they'll start.
How many more airplanes could we accommodate at this point without any new development of hangars?
We can park about 10 more airframes on the field for tie down at 40 a month. So, and because we've got a couple of ones. that
Plus
are going
fuel
up
sales,
for
plus
sales.
maintenance
Yes, plus
sales,
fuel
plus
sales, plus oil.
Local
sales.
impact, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has a local impact. Because a lot of the transit, they'll get the crew car and they'll be at all the local restaurants, both Bargain Barn, Ingles, Kroger, for ICE, especially the jet boys. They need catering. So they call us and they give us a cater order. We go pick it all up, put it together, and then we have a catering item on our Visa, MasterCard, and card system. So we bill them for that, plus a fee.
Do we have a motel or hotel
Well,
other than the Woodward?
we have accommodations in Pickens County, but most, and if there's not a festival, they have vacancies. If there's a festival, G-Fest, Mountain Fest, Marble Fest, any kind of Apple Fest, you name whatever the festival, they're usually booked in advance. As such, they have been known to go to the Hampton camp. That's the backup location out of Pickens County. It'd be nice to have a 4 or 5 star in this town. And eventually we'll see that, I believe. Why not? Thank you to the commissioner for getting dirt, 40-some loads of dirt filling out our sinkhole. It's about half size of this room. And it's making great progress. We've had enough rain so they can test their theory. You sit in that tractor and watch the water as we see it, and they made some modifications. So it's coming along really nice. Thank you for that. Now the next hat and hand I'm gonna come to for is cut the bank. If they don't have anything else to do this summer.
out kudzu fast as I can go.
I would like to explore the possibility in the fall of doing a controlled burn and giving fire departments a place to test that out. So when we burn it, not have to cut it every year so much. That's just me. I need to shut up now.
Yeah,
I like myself.
good to go. I will note, as Randy discussed there, is you are now in the based aircraft, you're now at 21, just ran it today. You're 21st out of 104 airports in the state in the based aircraft. With the hangar activity being discussed here, you will be on the doorstep of the top 10. That's really something.
That's great.
What's the total number of airports? 140?
104 in Georgia. Now, a couple like Hartsfield, technically, there's not based aircraft there, so you get into the, in the 90s as far as total based airports that have based aircraft or wish they had based aircraft, put it that way. Nahunta in South Georgia wishes they had a based aircraft, they don't. But for you, again, it's just a continual arc, it's super positive. So
Great.
by the time you do the grouping of Ts that we're going to talk about, that's 20. Now you are about 100 is where you enter the top 10. So the Ts already, the contracts just got signed. So now, so anybody else, these other hangar people, that's more, and so that's just super positive. So anyway, from the standpoint of our report for tonight, you all met Amanda Roston, who's been with us about a year, and she is fantastic, and she has earned her spot to be here tonight. So we're very happy to have her, and she's a lot nicer than Randy and myself. So
Welcome aboard.
Pretty low bar there.
that's not, yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
She exceeded by a lot, so she's, yeah,
On the way to
brings the
the-
average up, that's for sure. One thing, and I'll say this, Amanda just pointed this out, our next meeting is September 10th, but because we're on the schedule on quarterly, we'll need to be working at, so we have kind of a draft version of that. CIP's up at the end of November, so we won't have another meeting before then, so we can, it's
So we should have it,
evolutionary type
so we should
thing.
have that updated for that meeting
Probably be
for
good.
presentation
Mhm.
and approvals. Okay.
Yeah, so we can be working on that. And then one thing, as Ed mentioned, Amanda and I were out at the airport to look at the wind cone, and then had a discussion with Randy, and I had another discussion with Ed about the AWAS. Your age of your age, AWAS is similar to a bunch of women at the same time. We've already begun replacing those. So as you get kind of the maintenance things to take care of it, very quickly over the next year or two, those will add up to more than your 25% share of a new improvement to the DOT program. So we're running that out, investigating that, so we can bring that back as options to you. Once we get past July 1st, we'll be able to get a little more commitment from GDOT.
That's my next question. Where are we with that funding? Is that
Yeah.
pretty readily available?
Yeah, they're doing some things with distributing some of the jet fuel money for runway extensions. That is got a pretty hot fuse on it, but they're trying to write some grants by the end of June. And yeah, exactly. So anyway, we'll be able to get some feedback after that. But definitely by the time we have the next meeting, we kind of have kind of direction with that. We just really want to be positioned so that, as that, as we have issues, that we make kind of the most efficient financial decision.
What's the AWAS going to cost?
It's about, now is about 115
So
grand.
instead of like 25.
Yeah,
We paid like 127,000 to put the old system in.
yeah.
One part of the kilometer is $3,500 and about 1,000 to install.
And there's other pieces.
It's the
And-
size of it that they
Yeah.
can play close.
And just similar to like our edge lights and things like that, when that thing begins, it has a pretty predictable life, and then it starts to get, that's kind of good. So we're kind of at that point where it's useful to have that information in your pocket, have that commitment from GDOT. And essentially, it's kind of the same mark we took, different ratio of money, same we took with the beacon, right? So that worked out really well.
We need to do
Does
that.
this not qualify with the FAA as a safety issue, therefore higher priority for?
It would come out of your entitlement money first.
Okay.
So, and then that's going to, as a land reimbursement.
Right.
So if something happened and we wanted to do that as a direct switch out and then try to, just shuffle something, for that 150 year entitlement, it doesn't chew up all of it for the big chunk. So, and we've got about a year and a half worth of value in there, to recoup on the land acquisition. And it may be something, we'll talk about CIP, we just kind of vet that out so everybody's on serve that up in that, next meeting, or it can just be shared. But we're super proactive out front of us, that's really good. And then the only other thing I have is just on T-hanger, which is listed later, let me just give kind of an update on that, keep firing away.
Yeah.
On the T-hanger, those contracts just came back, you've got kind of the approval to sign, those were just signed last week, I guess, was when I was at your office. Those have been signed, sent back to the contractor, they're now ordering steel. If we kind of, all the minutia of land disturbing permit and site and all that, if we just go right to the end, occupancy, we're probably 6 months out. It's about 3 months for steel and about 3 months on the building.
All I want for Christmas is a T-hanger.
There you go.
So, anyway, that's the arc, and we'll
Said
continue. to
Christmas,
update
I
that.
just said the wrong one.
That's, yeah, didn't say year, just said Christmas. No, that's great, but you now have signed contracts for that, and that's great, yeah. And there was
Excellent.
a big push, as you bid it, pursued everything to get to the point where you could sign those, the interesting things going on with steel. Another nice little curveball, so you couldn't totally relax, but you're in good shape with that now, so.
Good.
That's it, that's all we got.
And steel delivery and dirt movement, ground prep, all is coordinated, so
Now there's a lot of lifting with that and making sure that people
yeah.
get close enough that they are efficient without stepping on each other. So we'll take care of that. There's stuff with that will be put in.
And there might be some other dirt being moved around over there about the same time, so.
That's exactly
Traffic
right.
jam.
In one of the things, I had a conversation with Ed about it, but we're in starting the site work so that we're not unnecessarily disturbing the folks who are on the existing unit facing north.
Yeah.
We're trying to time that out with the steel, so we start that, and it's not going to be a giant disruption then, but we just want to be courteous. So, anyway, but I'll coordinate with you on that. So, there you go. That's what we got.
Before we leave the T-hanger, Landrum told me this morning, he's filed what he has to with the courts for the validation, 2 weeks of legal ads, and I think on the 27th, as long as nobody's filed anything counter to it, bond proceeds should be available. So,
We already got that gentleman got the signed contracts, and we got in about 2 minutes, I think, the first request. So we'll be reviewing that and coordinating that with that. That should
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Review it thoroughly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Question on the T-hangers, Randy, is there a waiting list? Are they filled? Are we advertising?
3 years ago, we took deposits and all 19 were obligated 3 years ago. We've only had to refund 2 and we had 18 backups. So they're already obligated unless they drop out and we go through the list. You are on the list as of the day you arrive. So you're
Okay, so
about
what do we do, though?
72 on the list.
So if I'm way down on that, so I guess my question is, are there a lot more people that want hangers than are going to be available?
Yes, and we're adding 2 to 3 people on the hanger waiting list weekly. The thing about it is once our 19 are going, there's 3 other contractors that are possibly getting their hangers up almost the same time as ours. If I was a guessing person, optimistically, I'd say we'd have 57 hangers by January 1. 57 aircraft capable of bed down, possibly even more. We may have around
Because we just
75.
haven't heard enough about, the public
Yeah,
who has aircraft.
there's been various articles in the Pickens County Progress. The thing about it is we're all sitting on waiting for the starting gun. It's been fired now. So once we start seeing movement, you'll see a lot of movement rapidly. And
We do have a paid list, and then we have people who put a deposit down. And we have a list that's right behind that don't currently have deposits behind it. And what will happen is, now that we're getting started and we have a target date, we'll go through that list and reconfirm with everybody that's on the paid list. I anticipate there'll be 1 or 2 that will fall out of that. We'll then go to that unpaid list and give them the option to write that deposit check to secure that position. If they're not prepared to write a deposit check, then we go to the next person down the list and keep going until we have at least 19 deposit checks in hand. So the day that those hangars have their certificate of occupancy, we want them filled.
And right now, he just mentioned briefly about the price of steel, and with the cost of steel in flux, with the doors cost, depending on what kind of doors we put on, you know, we have to look at the amortization, so that we really project the hangar rent to be between $325 and $350 a month. Now that's a guess on my part. Just depends on the cost of steel and how many years we want to put this out, and that's their hands.
Is that competitive compared to,
Very much
well,
so.
with other airports, they have people that take the planes into the hangars. If we don't offer that service,
We will not offer that service.
it's harmful, especially to a woman that has to push a plane into
Most
a
of the
hangar.
people have
From our
large
side,
aircraft.
we don't have a group hangar.
electric tubs.
The group hangars are what you're talking about for that in and out service.
Right.
Yeah.
And we don't offer a group hangar, we offer T hangars. Group hangars may be offered by other individuals on the airport, so you may have that service if you wish.
Yeah.
If you go to Cherokee County, if you can get a T hanger, there's about a 10-year wait list for one. It's about $100 a month, $125 a month higher than where we are right now. If you go to Peachtree to Cab, I had a T hanger down there, I was paying $525 for a T hanger down at Peachtree to Cab. So our prices are very competitive with the marketplace and priced accordingly to proximity to the major population there. As far as in and out service on a T hanger, we won't be offering that. We don't have a full service FBO here. We have county operated FBO, and we just don't have line service and that sort of thing to offer that.
Now,
You can buy a tug, there's multiple ways to be able to get that in and out, so.
And with like he's saying with the tug, you can get gasoline or electric powered. They're becoming quite reasonable now that there's more an uptick in the aviation industry. So hopefully when we get our hangars up. One thing that may cause a little bit of, we're already seeing the state of Georgia have meetings about the Super Bowl in February. We are the first airfield out of Atlanta airspace. We can accommodate 4 jets currently, maybe 5, but it might be a little busy in January, 1st February for Super Bowl weekend. Just saying.
I knew that AstroTurf at the high school bring in the Super Bowl. Yeah,
Good investment.
Thank you, I needed that.
Commissioner, you're up.
Oh, really?
And with that,
And with that,
expound on.
other than filling Randy's hole up over there, boy, it should be pretty well finished up that. That dirt that's going in there is coming off of Pettit Road, trying to finish that road up, and widening it out, so it gives us a spot to put that. There might be a little more coming in there, and we're opening up. Actually, you had a drain out there that just was stopped up, but just we've got all that cleaned out. And so get the drainage working back on that particular area there. Soon we got about 1,200 feet of 8-inch main to go out Yukon Road, have that line finished at the Gilmer County line. That being said, the crew that's finishing that up will I'll probably get 1 or 2 of them boys off. We got some time this summer to start getting those banks knocked down, so that's what the plan is. I gotta get that water line in, because I got some people who are needing water. So that's coming to fruition here. Probably finish that up this week. So that's good. And for the airport, that's a lot going on, but the airport, that's pretty well what we got. We're just waiting on some other things happening there.
If you have any extra fill dirt, we've got an area out there toward that north end of the runway that
I don't think this dirt would be capable. It's got a lot of rock and waste in it, so it's not going to have tax issues.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, old business, we've talked about T-hangers, Fonte lease. Ed, did you?
I talked to Mr. Fonte not last week, week prior, and he's struggling with the steel prices at the moment. Bid came back about 50% higher than where he anticipated it being, based on steel and some availability. So he's still struggling to put his package together. He wants to lease, he wants to get it done, he's just got to figure out the steel pricing right now. So I think there was a very sharp uptick in steel prices with the tariffs announced, and that's settling back out a little bit, and steel prices are stabilizing a bit. So I think hopefully we'll hear something from him before the end of the month. And if not, I did let him know that there is a time limit that he can tie that property up. And if he doesn't act during that time limit, it's then available for lease to anyone else. So he's aware of the fact that there is a time essence in this. So.
Good. Broadwell lease, Phil had turned over to surveyor several weeks ago, anticipating that layout may be back this week, maybe.
He emailed saying that he's working with Broadwell on a different layout or a change in the layout.
Changing the parking
Yeah.
was,
And the layout about that time, for about a month ago, when Broadwell forwarded authority to the correct version. So I guess that as they sped that out, then there'll be something that comes back.
Yeah.
So right now, no action from the authority, just waiting for.
yeah.
When do we anticipate that next action? When do we think we'll see the new drawing together? Just waiting on surveyor at this point, right?
Or I guess Broadwell, they're working with the surveyor, so I would say once they step on, he's good, the surveyor can tie it pretty quickly. And he's just buttoned that up. For the spot, we're defined on three sides, right? There's the back line of Fonte, then the offset from the taxiway, and then the right of way from the road.
It's really just
So,
one line we're talking
So
about.
it seems like that would be pretty quick once the decision is made.
Right.
So really, we are just waiting, unless there are some changes, it's got to circulate back to us.
And
We're just waiting on the,
I spoke with Eric before I left the country last, and he talked about some changes there, and it really was pretty minor. It was the fact that he had some pull-in parking, he had to back out too far, and so he's altering some things there. I think it'll actually, what's going to result is he needs another 20 feet of the taxiway. So it's not going to be a big change. It's really parking.
all right. ACC, I've had indication that they're proceeding, even though I've sent word that basically we need those first 4 items of the Exhibit A to consider and approve before we can take that next step. So that's been communicated. Any other questions on the old business? New business, ground lease extension. I've passed out a memo from Phil regarding our original 20-year land lease terms to the South Apron area. And given where our new leases are, we had some conversations around extending those original leases for another 5 years, just to be a little more equitable with those original leaseholders. So I just opened that up for discussion.
I've had conversations with multiple people who are on that 20-year lease, and there have been comments about the discrepancy between 20-year there, 30-year on the other. And I think it is a fair modification. They're paying their rents, they're doing their thing, they've got airplanes in there, they're not storing cars, so they're used for the right reasons. So I think that, quite frankly, it's justifiable in my mind. So I would suggest that we extend that 5-year lease. It's more money for the county. Frankly, it's at a higher rate than our current per square foot lease is anyway. So therefore, we're looking at per square foot good revenue.
Was that a motion?
That's a motion. Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, any other new business? All right, we will consider ourselves adjourned. Thank y'all.